Explain to us what benefits renters and homeowners can have from these programs with your new expanded coverage.
If you're a renter or if you're a homeowner, you may be able to apply for FEMA assistance or receive financial assistance for either housing repairs or repairs to your personal property. If you have repairs or damages to your primary car, your primary vehicle, we'll be able to provide you with some financial assistance to help you with that. I want to encourage all survivors, if you're a renter or homeowner, make sure you're putting in those applications as soon as possible. Even if you have renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, you may still be eligible for some FEMA assistance. So start working on putting in those applications as soon as possible.
How important is it for those homeowners and renters to keep their receipts during times like this?
It's very important because a lot of the times we will need those documents to work through your FEMA application when you do apply. So I highly recommend for anyone, even if they haven't applied yet and you've started making repairs to your home and then you think, oh, hey, maybe I do need to apply for FEMA assistance, making sure you're keeping track of all that documentation and receipts that you already have.
So we know that some people get denied for FEMA assistance. What is the number one reason people get denied?
So I would say there would be various reasons. Sometimes it can be as small as there was a typo in your Social Security number. So just making sure that you're going through when you're filling out the application and just double checking all of your answers and all of the documents that you put in. I highly recommend, if survivors have trouble with working through the application process, if they have any questions, to come into one of our disaster recovery centers. Right now we have 7 of them, and speak with a FEMA representative face-to-face, and they'll be able to help you work through that application process, so it's a lot easier for you.
Now, do you have any income barriers here or insurance barriers that might come into place? I know sometimes people are worried if they pay their deductible on their homeowner's insurance, then that's when FEMA steps in. Kind of explain some barriers that you guys have with that.
So we will need your annual income or household income when you do apply. But if you do have a deductible to your insurance, you may be eligible for FEMA to get some assistance with paying that. So again, just communicating your unique circumstances and your needs at the time.
Now, tell us about this Disaster Recovery Center. What are you guys offering here?
So when survivors come into the disaster recovery centers, at the various locations, we may have various other agencies located at the center as well. Sometimes you'll find representatives from the Small Business Administration, and they offer low-interest disaster loans if that's another option that you may need to go through. But when you come in, you can sit down with a FEMA representative, and they'll be able to help you start with that initial application process. If you've already put in your application and you need to come in and submit some documents, or if you just have some questions, you can also come in and speak with us about those as well.
Are you guys structured on like a first come, first served basis, or how is the money sent by FEMA divvied up amongst, residents in the area?
So it's not divvied up like that. So what I like to tell people is help us help you. So the quicker that we have all of the documentation that we need to process your application, then the quicker you'll be able to get assistance. So keep in constant communication with us. Come into a disaster recovery center, ask your questions. If you see that your application is pending, come in and double check and see what else we may need from you. You'll also receive a determination letter from FEMA, which will explain what we may need if we need further documentation to keep processing your application, or if you've been deemed eligible or ineligible for assistance. If you are deemed eligible, it'll have that amount on that determination letter as well.
Now, what kind of declaration needs to be made in order for FEMA to step in?
So for there to be a declared disaster in your area, there needs to be a request that's submitted to from the governor to the president, and it needs to be a federally declared disaster declaration. And that is when FEMA will be able to step in and start providing assistance to survivors who were affected by that disaster.
Okay. Do you have maybe a definition of what they consider a disaster, or when does it become federal disaster?
It's a case-by-case basis. Again, it has to come from the governor. It starts with the state. They have to be able to submit that request for federal assistance. So when you come to a disaster recovery center, like I said before, you can sit down with a FEMA representative. You can sit down with a representative from the Small Business Administration. At another one of our DRCs, we had some representatives from the Red Cross, and they were there providing assistance to survivors who were coming in and letting them know what their needs were. So sometimes there can be various different organizations located at the center. Sometimes we'll have some mental health assistance that's at the center, or legal assistance that is available at the centers as well. So just coming in and letting us know what your needs are, and then we'll be able to direct you from there.
So there's a lot of myths that go around with residents. A lot of people think that it rains and FEMA's supposed to show up the next day. Kind of debunk some of the things that you guys have heard, be it through social media or through residents just kind of talking about you guys. Debunk some of those myths for us about what FEMA does and what they don't do.
Of course, and I know this happens all the time, especially with social media. But for there to be FEMA assistance, specifically with individual assistance and our public assistance programs, there needs to be a federally declared disaster. So that request needs to come from the governor to the president, and it needs to get approved by the president, and then FEMA will be able to get on the ground and start assisting people with their disaster recovery. Another myth that I've heard is that when you do have insurance, you're not going to be eligible to apply with FEMA assistance, and that's not true. If you have underinsured needs, if you're a renter, if you're a homeowner and you have insurance, you can still apply through FEMA, and you still may be eligible to receive some assistance through us.
When it comes to food recovery, there are people living, paycheck to paycheck in some instances. I know that sometimes you guys want them to pay up front and then you'll reimburse them. Is that what the case has been? Or how can the person living paycheck to paycheck get immediate food assistance if they need something like today?
Mm-hmm. So if they apply through FEMA and let us know that they have a serious need, they may be able to receive serious needs assistance. So that's funding that will be able to get to them quicker once we work through that process. If they have that immediate need or like a serious need for life-saving and life-sustaining products like breastfeeding materials, baby food, water, things like that, or like gas for transportation. If you have that serious need, then you may be eligible for that through FEMA.
How does the reimbursement kind of work? If I say I'm staying at my friend's house and, she asked me for $50 for rent because she let me live with her for 2 weeks, do you guys offer services for that? Or maybe I had to change my child's child care provider. Now I have to go across town to drop them off at a babysitter. How do you guys handle like those real life kind of situations?
So we do have a program called Displacement Assistance. So this is a new program. I don't know if you've heard back or earlier this year we announced some huge updates to our individual assistance program, which we created 2 new benefits. One was the Serious Needs Assistance Program, which I spoke about earlier. This one is called Displacement Assistance. So it gives survivors that flexibility to decide what's the best housing option for them. So like you said, if they're staying with their friend because their home was damaged and they need to give their friend $50 for utilities, they can use displacement assistance for those needs. If they are staying with someone and they want to help out with groceries, they can use that funding for that. So it just gives them the flexibility, whether they want to stay in a hotel, whether they want to stay with their friend, whether they want to stay in an Airbnb. It gives them the freedom to choose what's the best option for them.
And in those cases, say that I go to a hotel and I foot the bill, do I have to wait for the reimbursement? Do you guys offer it up front? I'm not sure if I asked that question earlier. Do you guys offer it up front, or do I have to fill out a form and kind of wait 6 months and then you pay me the $150 or $200 back?
So that's why I want to encourage people to make sure that they're communicating to FEMA what their unique circumstances are. If they're staying with their friend, if they've been in a hotel for the last week and they've been paying, for their room, let us know what that is, so we'll be able to route you to the right program to get you the right assistance for exactly what you need.
So we're talking about homes mostly, but what about your business? What if your business didn't have any damage, but say like you didn't get customers for maybe 2 weeks? Is there anything that FEMA can do for small businesses in those kind of situations?
So that's when we would route folks through the Small Business Administration, where they are able to offer assistance to businesses who have been affected by the disaster. They're able to offer them with low interest disaster loans as well.
A lot of people here care about their pets substantially. Tell us a little bit about how you can help with the pet situation. If you've had to board your pets, maybe you felt like you've had to give them away. How can FEMA step in to help the animals in the area?
I know for the Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program, which has now been activated for, I believe, a few of the 19 designated counties, if you do have a pet and that pet needs to come with you to the hotel, you'll be eligible to take that pet where FEMA will pay for your pet to stay with you while you're in that program located in one of the participating hotels.
You could just tell us a little bit about what is the difference between the old programs and the new programs? What are like the key points that you guys have changed and expanded for the new disasters?
So I wouldn't say like old programs versus new programs, because it's just the individual assistance program, but we've expanded some of the programs that we already have, and we've created 2 new programs. So the 2 new programs is serious needs assistance, where survivors will be able to receive, funds for any of their serious needs, and then also for displacement assistance, which gives survivors that flexibility to stay where they want to stay. If they want to stay in a hotel, if they're staying with their friend, a family, if they want to go to an Airbnb, it gives them the option to choose what works best for them. We've also expanded some of our habitability for other programs that we've had. For example, I think the biggest change is previously, survivors would have to work through the process and apply for a small business disaster loan to become eligible or to be referred back to FEMA to see what they would be eligible for. We've now removed that requirement, so survivors no longer have to apply or to have to submit an application to the Small Business Administration to work through the FEMA application process. I know we saw a lot of reluctance with that from survivors because they hear Small Business Administration, I'm not a business, I don't own a business, why do I have to apply for a loan? I just need assistance through FEMA. So we've removed that to help them work through the application process easier, but we also still work very closely with the Small Business Administration. They are our close partners. They're usually located in our disaster recovery centers, so if survivors do see that they do need to apply for a low interest disaster loan, they can still come to the disaster recovery centers and work through that process with us.
The May 16th storm, right? Mm-hmm. We had a storm that happened yesterday, a small one. You were affected on both of them. Mm-hmm. Do you have to do a double application, or is only one application for the 2 disasters?
If you're affected by multiple storms, it's going to still be one application because it's one disaster declaration. Now, if there's a separate disaster declaration, then that's when you have to submit a separate application to FEMA. But the incident date for this declaration is still open. So the ongoing storms and the ongoing severe weather that we are experiencing, if you receive any damage from that, you'll still be eligible to apply for FEMA assistance. If you have received additional damages from a separate storm and you already have your application in with FEMA, again, call FEMA. Come to the Disaster Recovery Center and communicate that you have experienced additional damages so they can add that to your existing application.
What would happen if you do another application? Will you confuse the system?
It'll just get flagged if you put in another application, and that will be denied because it'll already know that the system has located you already have an existing application with us.
Do you have a Spanish speaker or other languages? Language could be a barrier, like a barrier.
So if you are Spanish speaking and you need an interpreter or you need to speak with someone who also speaks Spanish, you can come to our disaster recovery centers. Most of our disaster recovery centers, especially the one that we are currently at, there are 2 Spanish speakers to help you work through the application process. And also when you call the FEMA helpline, which is the 1-800-621-3362, Spanish speakers just need to press the number 2 and they'll be directed to a Spanish speaker to help them work through the application process.
When you ask for information, do you ask for their legal status?
So we do ask for the appropriate documentation that shows that you are a qualified citizen or a qualified non-citizen. So making sure you're bringing all of the documentation that you do have to prove your citizenship is going to be needed for a FEMA application. If there is someone in your household who has the appropriate documentation, they can submit the application, and then the other household members can be listed under that application to receive assistance as well.
We asked our viewers a few questions. I'll read a few of them to you and see if you can answer them. So the first one is on click2houston.com from SLC. They say, will FEMA provide any financial compensation or resources for those of us that missed work or hours due to power outages? I am on a very tight income, as many of us are, and have no idea how I'll be able to financially recover from missing several days of work without pay.
Folks who have if they're experiencing unemployment due to the disaster unemployment assistance has been turned on, but that's offered through the state. So I can give you the number. It's the Texas Workforce Commission, and it's 800-939-6631, and that's open between the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m., or they can go online as well to submit an application so they can get that assistance if they're currently experiencing unemployment.
Another question into our newsroom is from the elephant in the room. That's their username. They're asking, where can disabled and homebound people apply, and how soon should we expect the funds realistically to help?
So they can, if they have the ability to come in, or transportation, they have someone to help them come into a disaster recovery center, they are more than free to do that. Or they can apply at home. They can call the FEMA helpline number, which is at 1-800-621-3362, or they can go online at disasterassistance.gov and put in their application there. Again, I like to encourage people and to tell people, help us help you. We're going to work through the process as fast as we can, as long as we have all the documentation that we need to work through that process. So communicating us, asking your questions up front and saying, what exactly do I need? What documentations do you need? What receipts do you need? What estimates do you need from me? And we'll let you know all of that, so you can submit that all and as quickly as possible, so we can work through that process for you.